Tell them what happened, Anthony. Tell them what happened. Save Cal.
Oh no! Oh no! Hi everyone, I'm Anthony Sadtano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Tyler the Creator album, Cherry Bomb. Odd Future member, lead member of Odd Future, sort of seen as the West Coast hip hop collective, rapper, producer, songwriter. He announced this album just last week, and when he did so, he gave us a taste of two different tracks. One, the song Death Camp, which kicks this album off. One of the more aggressive tracks on the entire album, with this hard-rocking, distorted guitar riff. The song kind of reminded me of some Pharrell-style production off of an NERD album, specifically the song Lap Dance. And it wasn't a bad track. It featured a lot of beat change-ups, and some of Tyler's lines on this song weren't too bad either. And then we had the song Fucking Young, where Tyler is essentially going in a bit of a neo-soul direction. It's definitely one of the most lush and classy instrumentals Tyler the Creator has been on so far. He entirely produced this album, including this song, and I think this song and a few others on here sort of expose Tyler's talents as an arranger. However, the sort of statutory rape theme and topic of this song, as well as the trashy lyrics, just weren't that appealing to me. Tyler seems to be afraid of getting cuffed over this love interest who is too young for him, but yet all over this album we get constant reminders that he's rebellious and he doesn't like the rules. Tyler's rebellion is kind of like a safe rebellion, a bit of a storm in a teacup sort of thing. He's rebellious to the point where he will use homophobic slurs in his songs and will get angry about not being able to wear his hat in some place, which was a line off of that Death Camp track that dropped before the release of this album. And now that I'm getting the full scope of the lyrics, what is going on here is Tyler is kind of pushing the cameras away and saying, I'm not liking these lights and all this attention, as if all of this over coverage and media saturation and controversy isn't what got Tyler and Odd Future to the point where they are now anyway. As far as the other songs on Cherry Bomb go, they kind of switch back and forth sonically between this more smooth neo-soul style and some of this kind of goofy, noisy, hard-hitting hardcore hip-hop. We have Okauga, California, Find Your Wings, as well as the track Two-Seater, all of which have more of a soul style to them. And these are actually some of the better tracks on the album. They have really clear production, lots of sweet, melodic, and harmonious layers. It kind of reminds me of another Odd Future group, The Internet, and even though there seems to be a lack of mastery for the genres of jazz and soul in these tracks, just like with The Internet, I feel like Tyler turns it into something a little left field and kind of warped, whereas the Internet albums, the albums that they've come out with so far, are just really all weakly played, written, and produced. And I've seen videos of Tyler playing piano, and he seems to have a lot of talent on the piano, and if there's one record in his discography so far where that talent shines, I think it's here. Whether it be on some of the piano parts on this record, or whether it be through some of the great chord progressions. Now, the harder, louder cuts on this album are the ones that really stand out, though, but they don't really stand out for any good reason. For example, the title track on this LP, which is maybe the most boring show of aggression I've heard on a record this year. For one, the song has this booming break beat to it, which sounds like it was lifted out of a Prodigy song. And every bit of instrumentation in this song is compressed, distorted, overmodulated to the point where the beat is really the only readable thing about this track. Tyler mixes his vocals very low and essentially stashes himself away behind this crappy wall of digital distortion, which most likely is entirely intentional. If Tyler wants to throw a temper tantrum behind this unlistenable wall of crud that only his superfans would want to sit through in order to listen to the deeper meaning that they're most likely making up, that's fine. Not interested. Mission accomplished. And there's some other cuts here. While I may like some of the instrumentals, they suffer from at least a similar degree of distortion, overmodulation, unintelligibility. Like I can't even make out what the lyrics are saying, or they're kind of chipmunked and kind of pitched up in a really obnoxious way, like on Keep the O's or Run. And the song Buffalo, I actually like the beat on this track a lot. Some massive bass on this song, and a sample that you might remember from one of Pusha T's more recent singles, Numbers on the Boards. It's a vocal sample from Tina Sigler's Shake Your Booty. Yeah! You feel alright? Yeah! Which actually reminds me of the way that the children's voices were kind of sampled on a track from the new Earl album. But yeah, despite a few likable qualities, a lot of these harder cuts are completely unlistenable. The album is actually just much easier on the ears in terms of clarity and likability on the last third. There you're getting the song The Brownstains with Schoolboy Q, and oddly enough, on the intro to this beat, Tyler is delivering this flow that reminds me of Pharrell's rapping or the refrain that he's delivering on the Clip song Ain't Ya. And there are moments where this beat actually reminds me of the beat that Tyler, I believe, created and landed on Schoolboy Q's new album. And even though this track seems distorted like many of the others on this album, Tyler is much more readable on this track as he delivers a series of lyrics that kind of seem like an anti-endorsement of rap stereotypes, whether that be Diamonds on the Neck, the drugs, the lean. And the song Smuckers, surprisingly enough, features both Kanye and Lil Wayne on the same track. There is a sweet beat change-up on this track. The Lil Wayne side of this song is much more sweet and soulful as far as the instrumental character. Kanye does his typical rapping/singing thing where he is kind of simultaneously struggling with an ego complex but also a victim complex, which just never comes together well for me. And we have Lil Wayne bringing his usual Tunechi style braggadocio. Tyler on this track I actually find to be pretty entertaining and is hilariously dark and offensive sometimes, saying that he's like an AIDS patient, nobody's fucking with him. I actually think this record would have been a little bit more entertaining if I could hear Tyler a little bit more. I think some people have been kind of comparing some of the more aggressive and distorted moments on this record to Death Grips and their new album, and sort of the guitar distortion that landed on the Jenny Death side of the powers that be. And maybe that did influence Tyler on this album. I don't know. But if he did, he went about manifesting that influence in an incredibly unentertaining way. There's a difference between having pieces of distorted instrumentation in your mix and then just distorting the entire track to the point of unlistenability. And that's what I think happens on this album all too often. Overall, with this LP, didn't care for it, but I'm sure in a sense this was an exciting album to put out for Tyler. I kind of see this as maybe the third part to a trilogy starting with Goblin. And Wolf was kind of the mature building point, which was incredibly story-like and conceptual throughout much of the album. And I think Cherry Bomb is kind of Tyler taking the sandcastle that he's built over the course of his past two albums and then just angrily smashing it into just a pile, which is a very Tyler, the Creator, thing to do. There are moments on this LP that make for some of the most refined instrumentals that Tyler has ever been on, and then conversely, just because of the bad mixing and the bad production, there are some instrumentals here that are some of the worst that have ever been on a Tyler, the Creator album. So while I don't really care for this LP, I do have to give it to Tyler for being one of the few artists out there bold enough to simultaneously disappoint and impress so consistently. I'm feeling a strong 3 to a light 4 on this album. Tran?
Session. Become the journalism with a logo. Lava, Gilma, Gilma.